Titans fans, hello. Welcome back to the Two Tone Crew. This is episode 156. And boy, it's going to be an episode. It's going to be quite an episode as the Titans roller coaster season comes to an end against the New England Patriots, which isn't even the major topic of discussion this week because here we find ourselves yet again with another coaching change. Jamal, we've had a few of these to discuss on this podcast at this point.
Yeah, you'd think we'd be getting used to it by now, but it feels new every time. Roller coaster season over, roller coaster off season is just starting.
Begins. Yep. Scotty, you're back with us once again as well. Just a crazy time to be a Titans fan.
Yeah, but it seemed like it was possible even as far back as the Jaguar game.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, it's kind of crazy at this point. I mean, it hasn't even been a week yet since the game, but I think we got to start off with the major news first. So if this is your first time joining us, we are the official podcast of TitansReport.com. We do an episode every week during the season and then kind of occasional high points of the off season. I guess at this point, we're kind of podcasting indefinitely until we sort of see how all this shakes out in terms of the coaching search. But yeah, the Titans have made the decision to move on from Mike Mularkey. And before we really dive in, because I want to break down the timeline of things, I want to kind of go over that, go what we were told, and then let us kind of step back and read between the lines a little bit, because I think there's still a lot that hasn't been reported yet, but we can pretty much assume based on what we know. But before we get into any of that, I just want to do initial reactions to when you guys read the news, because I mean, we started out the night before we got this report that they were working on an extension. So, okay, that's kind of where most of our minds were at. And it was really odd, though, the way it was worded. It really reminded me of the Munchak situation, because they were talking about, they're working on terms. They're trying to agree to terms. And I immediately posted, I said, this is not over, guys. We got a very similar story like this with Munchak. Then the next day, I think it was Monday, Martin Luther King Day, pretty early in the day, we got word that they moved on from Mike Mularkey. So, I mean, Jamal, just when you saw the news, what was your initial reaction there?
Why is John texting me? That was what I thought.
Oh, was that the first you heard of it?
That was the first. I actually had a super busy day Monday. So I had hardly been on Twitter. And so
Yeah.
I looked at my phone. I was like, oh, there's a text from John. That's abnormal. And it was a tweet. And I was like, the most likely thing here is that Mularkey was fired. But clearly that's not happening because I read the news last night. So wonder what this is. And then I opened it up and I crapped my pants.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that I didn't realize that was when you first found out there. Because you wrote back to me 3 letters, WUT question mark.
Yeah. What? Yeah. No, I was pretty surprised because of the news the night before, and it just felt like the momentum was going towards they're going to figure out how long to keep him, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I don't think it's any secret to anyone who listens to the podcast or posts on TitansReport.com or one of the few people who follows me on Twitter. I was not disappointed to see the end of the Mike Mularkey era.
Era. Scotty, what was your reaction? I'm guessing you were off work that day as well.
Yeah, I kind of suspected, like I said, Amy Adams Strunk's statement after the what was it, after the Jacksonville game? I mean,
after the Chiefs game, right? I guess that was when.
Yeah, after the Chiefs game. I guess the first
when he forced it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, and I said on the podcast and I posted that I thought he was still in danger and everything. But then, you hear the extension and I thought then he might be safe. But when I saw that he was actually fired, I wasn't surprised at all. Then it all made sense, and then, the extension, everything I heard, Albert Breer, other people, there was no real talk of an extension. I even think Mularkey probably knew he was fired when he did his last press conference.
Yes, yeah, it certainly seemed like it. So yeah, let's get into that. So the timeline is kind of complex here. And I think the best place to start is probably like you were alluding to there with that initial report. So really it came from Ian Rappaport, December 30th, before the Jacksonville game. So that's when we got the report that he could be fired with a loss. And it actually said even if they go one and done in the playoffs, he could be fired with a loss. With a loss to Jacksonville, or a loss if they make it in. And so then once they won the Chiefs game, that's when we talked about on the show, they had the whole thing after the press conference or during the press conference after the game, when they asked him about those reports. And very clear, all three of us talked about how, I mean, he was clearly upset by those reports. He immediately brought up his family. It was a raw, emotional reaction that we got from him right away. And he just did not seem happy. But with that game, then that kind of forced her to make a statement. And so she made the statement. And as a lot of people pointed out, that was a very carefully worded statement, because it really offered no commitment through 2018. It really only offered a commitment of the here and now, which was basically the next playoff game. So then, of course, we podcasted last week talking about the upcoming Patriots game. The Patriots game, the morning of that, though, actually just this past Saturday, Ian Rappaport once again had the report saying Mularkey wasn't safe despite the statement, and that there were coaches actually inside the organization who didn't feel safe. So they lose the game to the Patriots, as we all know now, and they asked him about it again. I think they asked him about it after that game? I know they definitely asked him about it in the kind of end of year press conference, but they brought it up again. And the press conference is really when things just, I mean, he pretty much doubled down on everything. I mean, he said they were pleased with Mariota's development. He said they were happy with the course they were on. He said that he foresaw no coordinator changes at all. And really, I mean, immediately it kind of set Titans Twitter ablaze of fans just being really kind of shocked. I think at the very least, we thought we would be getting some coordinator changes. And when he came out and just completely doubling down, didn't sit well with a lot of people. And then we got the news that evening, of course, that they were talking extension. And the next day is when we got the news of the firing. So, then the follow-up, of course, to kind of wrap all of this up, is the John Robinson press conference, of course. So John Robinson was there was a lot of people on Titans Report saying he didn't answer anything. I thought he was surprisingly candid. I mean, he straight up answered yes to some questions when they asked him about several different things throughout that press conference. I mean, he actually said that Mularkey's press conference had an impact on the decision. So let's kind of unpack all this. And Scotty, we'll start with you. I mean, kind of try to read between the lines here. And you can really start to piece together what was going on. It wasn't this didn't just happen overnight. I mean, this was kind of brewing for a while, I think. Did we lose Scotty here? It looks like he might be on mute there. All right, well, you could take that one, Jamal. Maybe we can get him unmuted here before long. But yeah, so I mean, kind of reading between the lines, what was your general thought on, I mean, what all of that do you buy? The reports before, the reports after, as we try to kind of piece all this together?
I mean, I buy most of it. I know Ian Rappaport, one other thing is, I think it was Ian Rappaport, he was being interviewed, the days after the firing. And considering he's the one who was first breaking some of the news, I feel like he's got a pretty good source. And, he said Mike Mularkey, when the reports were coming out that coordinators and coaches still didn't feel safe, that Mike Mularkey was basically laughing that off. And so for me, the timeline makes sense. I believe what J-Rob was saying, that that maybe they weren't 100% settled, but they were in discussions with him and probably negotiating how long it's going to be, how much are they going to pay him, what sorts of staff changes they may tell him he has to make, if any, and those sorts of discussions. But they were resolved to try and find a way forward. And the press conference affected things. I buy it more or less 100% from John Robinson, which is certainly one of the more favorable to the Titans ways to present it, as opposed to something where they were just lying and leading him along and offering him something that he had to reject because it was so insulting. Believing John Robinson is favorable to the Titans, but I look at the context and some of the reporting and the timing of the reporting. It makes sense to me.
I think we got Scotty back now. There we go.
If the big beef was Mularkey wasn't maximizing the talent, and I mean, why would you keep him? I don't understand. What would Mularkey agree to that would make him want to keep him? That's why I don't buy it. Also, he talked about, I guess the big thing is they wanted him to fire Robisky. He explained in the press conference basically that he wasn't really designing the offense and game planning and stuff, or just had a small part in it. So I just don't buy that the press conference changed their mind. And why wouldn't Mularkey, if forget whether you agree with him or not, why wouldn't Mularkey want to keep doing what he thought was the best way to do it? Any coach would say that, right?
Yeah. Well, any coach would feel that way, but some people are more open to change than others. And the way he was aggressive in the way that he was answering the questions, he could have easily said, we're going to assess everything. And, you'll find out when we come out next year what sort of offense we're going to play. Instead, it was, no, our offense is great. It's fine. I design around the players. It's basically like a shut up type answer.
Well, I think him and Robinson were at odds over the best way to go forward, and he lost. He just lost.
Well, the thing is, you can be at odds and find a way forward together, but you can't be at odds and belligerent about it. And I get this strong sense. I mean, that press conference was basically belligerence from him. It was defiance.
Why would you keep him? What scenario would you keep him under, though? If he said what you wanted him to say at the press conference.
Well,
he's not changing his offense. He's not changing his offense. So
lots of coaches do. Lots of coaches are flexible with that sort of thing. Lots of coaches are willing to change offensive coordinators, are willing to look at results and realize it's not up to snuff. Like that's not unique. Like 13 offensive coordinators that got fired this year.
It just makes no sense to me that you totally think he's not maximizing the talent. He also said he wanted a coach that was going to, I forgot how he worded it. It was paramount that they were basically going to do what Robinson wanted. You remember the part I'm talking about in the press conference from Robinson?
No, I thought you were going to say that he wanted a leader of men, which in some ways I feel like, well, that kind of seems like what Mularkey was doing well. That was like the one thing I didn't mind from him.
That's the standard. We're going to hire a coach that's. I mean, they all say that, but no. Robinson said the next coach, it was going to be very paramount for him to be on the same page as Robinson.
Yeah,
I kind of.
He wants someone he's going to basically be over, and now the structure's set where Robinson's the top dog in charge, which I have no problem with that. I just don't think.
I think it's probably somewhere in between.
I don't think there's any reason to keep Mularkey, no matter what he said in the press conference, after what Robinson said in the press conference.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, I think maybe Amy. I think she may have been. That may have been the last straw for her. I see it as a situation where, I mean, we know how analytical Robinson is. I think he's probably been feeling this for quite some time. Well, I think that 3-game losing streak started to sell him on it even more and convince him, you know what, I'm starting to see more and more what he may have felt for who knows how long. He may have felt this from the time he took the job, which we'll talk more about that here in a little bit.
I agreed with what Jamal wrote about. It's possible that this has been, not in the works, but in the back of his mind or whatever. But she would have never gave the statement she did after the Kansas City game if she really had to be talked out of firing him. I mean, That is exactly what you would say to someone you were going to fire, but you just won a playoff game and you had to say something.
Right. Yeah. When he kind of forced the
Her
hand.
statement to me told that he was getting fired, especially after the way it happened. I mean, of course that's what she said because she was already going to fire him.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's probably been brewing in Robinson's mind for a while. I think that 3-game losing streak and just the overall
I think it was
regression of the offense.
It was Mariota's season. That's what it was. I mean, you can point to his stats and his play. I think that's what got Mularkey fired.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point, given that they made the playoffs, given that they won a game, I would say that I really think she was probably kind of bouncing back and forth. I mean, we know how much she loved Mularkey. I mean, that was basically her hire. She hired Mularkey. He made the playoffs. The players campaigned for him, loved him. He won a playoff game. And Robinson said in his press conference, did you guys catch that part when he said that Amy and I have had, I can't remember if he said several or numerous, but I mean, I got the idea that this is something that he had been almost like working on her, like talking with her multiple times.
No doubt about that.
You're not going to, I mean, as much as she was a fan of Mike Mularkey, and like you said, I think that was apparent, you're not going to convince her with a one conversation. Hey,
and you probably
Amy,
shouldn't be able
okay,
to.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. But so, I mean, it was a long time coming, but ultimately, one of the ways in which it makes sense to me for that last press conference from Mike Mularkey to be the final straw is that some of the interviews that Mike Keith was giving, and granted, again, this is the Titans,
right, putting out their story.
Yeah, it's their propaganda to a certain extent, right? But what he was saying is Amy wants unity. She looks at, I can't remember the word he used, but it was basically unity, synergy, I think. Synergy is important. And so it could easily be that press conference was defiant, and maybe she realized at that point, she said, okay, yeah, these two can't work together. Exactly. Then it's done.
Well, I think Mularkey knew that Robinson was the one leaking the stuff, and that's what he was pissed about. Yeah. And at this point, they can't work together anymore. And I wrote even before the New England game, the fact that he leaked it, and that in itself was a huge problem going forward.
Yeah, well, that's what we all talked about. I mean, the emotional way that he answered the questions about his job being in question, and the fact that it was obvious it was John Robinson's, that he wants a new coach. There was a bridge that had to be built between the two. There was a rift, and it didn't get fixed.
It's so crazy because without the context of what all happened the last 2 years, you go back to when we were talking about when they hired Mularkey. If you said they're going to have 2 winning seasons, make the divisional round, and win a playoff game, you would never dream that Mularkey was getting fired.
Yep.
It takes a spectacularly bad offense to pull it off, right?
It takes it took a Deshaun Kaiser type season from Mariota for him to get fired.
Ouch. Yeah, so
that's not a stretch.
I think there's more to it than just Mariota, but it's basically if our quarterback's not progressing, I think all of us would say this. He's the only thing that matters, right? We talk about that a lot. If he's not progressing, they have to find an answer.
Well,
period.
I agree. It wasn't just Mariota because in the presser, Robinson said, no, it's the players. And I go back to when we were talking about, who's to blame for the offense and stuff and the losing streak. Several people, included me, said, hey, wait a minute. Robinson has a role in this too. He didn't replace Fasano. There's not a clear-cut featured running back. He should have known Murray was close to the end. And I'm sure he's sitting there going, hey, wait a minute. It's not my fault. I brought in the players that should be.
They should be doing better.
Robinson has a vested interest in saying that the players aren't being used right because he's the one that picked them.
Well, that's kind of some of the stuff I was getting at when I wrote that post of what have we learned is, when if you don't have that comfort in the relationship, then when things go poorly, you're more likely to say, well, screw this. He's not taking my players and doing well with them.
I'll just add, he has not necessarily been proven right on that yet. I mean,
no, but I think so. Here's one of the things that I think is relevant, and it's a conversation we had, I think, last podcast and maybe even the one before, is the offensive talent versus the offensive production, where you largely felt that we don't have as much talent. And I was saying, no. We have more talent, or at least as much. They're just not producing this year. And I think that that's probably the same conversation that the two of them were having. Mularkey's saying, guys regressed, they're making mistakes. And John Robinson is saying, I brought in a number 5 pick at wide receiver. I did this, I did that. This guy's more experienced. You should be able to do better.
Yeah,
I think, but like Corey Davis, I mean, he probably advanced like he should have had he not been hurt. You know what I mean?
I'm 100% fine with Corey Davis's rookie year. I think that he flashed a lot and he was injured, and that's the minimum that I want. Is you saw some signs that if he can build on that, we'll see.
And the final
rookies
game
do not have to produce.
Yeah,
man.
Even go back to like the Oakland game. There were a couple of times where he did like toe tap receptions on the sideline early in the season, and it was like, wow, those are the types of catches I don't see from our past wide receivers. Like there were flashes throughout.
I think he also clearly wants Henry to be the featured running back. I mean,
yeah, and so I mean personally, and I don't think we need to go down an argument of what should have happened or what could have happened, but I think it's pretty clear that Mularkey had an offense that he liked to run, and he had preferences for players, and it took DeMarco Murray basically being unable to take the field to take DeMarco Murray off the field, and I think like that rigidity is something that factored into.
In 2 of the 3 games, though, Henry was Murray-like. I mean, he was pitiful in 2 of them, and one of them he almost got Mariota killed. So you can see why he wasn't necessarily put in a featured role. But I mean, none of that matters. It doesn't matter. He's been fired now. So
yeah, but I think those sorts of things are part of the disconnect between the two of them.
Yeah. This is why it led to where it is.
I think you made a great point, Jamal, about the discussions we've been having. I think you're right. I think you're right. I think they've probably been having behind closed doors probably very much mirrors the very discussions we've been having on this show, as well as on TitansReport.com all season long about the offense and this whole which came first, the chicken or the egg, Mariota's bad play or the offense. I think this is exactly what they've been trying to figure out behind closed doors. And the other thing I would say, I don't think I've seen anybody talk about this. Have you guys noticed we have not heard a single word from Mularkey? Most of the time after a coach gets fired, you'll at least get a statement. I want to thank the owner. I want to thank at least the support, the fans, the community. We've not heard a single word. I mean, I think this might be a lot worse behind the scenes than we even realize.
I don't know how bad it got in their relationship, but I can just only imagine. Like, I honestly, and dead serious, I pity him for what has happened. You only get so many shots in the NFL. He had 2. His second one, he was screwed because they got a new owner, and he said, I want a clean house. He got his third one, and he's proving to the world, we're gonna, I'm not as bad as everyone thinks I am. He goes 9-7 plus a playoff win, and they fire him anyway. Like, can you imagine being that guy?
Yeah.
Hey, the NFL.
I can't.
It's a brutal profession. Marty Schottenheimer got fired after going 14-2.
Yeah, that set that franchise back. That better not be like us.
Mike Tomlin, I mean, he probably deserves to be fired, honestly. I mean, I respect Robinson and the owner for, okay, this wasn't good enough. This isn't going to get us to the Super Bowl. Whether they're right or not, I don't care. The fact that this is the line of thinking, whereas in Pittsburgh, hey, Mike Tomlin's been screwing up games for years. That guy was talking about the AFC Championship game 2 weeks ago, how they were going to play the Patriots.
Yeah.
I would so want him fired too if I was a Steeler fan. These other teams that just make the playoffs, but they never really contend. I mean, there's a good chance. I mean, I don't know how much of a good chance, but it's very realistic the Titans do not make the playoffs next year. I will not hold that. I will not hold that against the new coach. Or Robinson for making this
I was going to say, I wouldn't hold that against Robinson because, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but we were saving, I think, a lot of the discussion for the offseason. But this division's getting a whole lot tougher if the other two teams get healthy.
It was going to be hard for Mularkey or whoever.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the same either way, so I'm not,
I will say another thing for Mularkey, he's probably looking around and he's like, I went 9-7 with a playoff win. And Hugh Jackson was hired the same time, and he's won one game.
Hey, what about Marvin Lewis? Same thing. I thought the same thing. Marvin Lewis and Hugh Jackson have their jobs, and Mularkey doesn't.
So I have a serious question. And I suspect I know your answers, but I can talk myself into saying maybe he did do enough. Do you think someone could sell Mike Mularkey? Let's say he comes in as an interim coach. They now have 2 years of history of saying, look, he went 9-7. He won a playoff game. He's no longer as damaged of a good as he once was. Could he possibly have done enough that maybe he can get a fourth chance in the right circumstances?
I don't think so, but who knows? I mean, the crazy stuff happens like that, but
maybe with an established quarterback, I don't think you'd see him get a chance with another young guy.
How about, he's had 3.
Well, I mean, let's not forget Mariota's first year under Mularkey was pretty great.
It was.
I mean, that's another thing.
It's ups and downs, but John Robinson said statistically, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, he was top 3 in several categories. But hey, another thing about the timeline. How fast are they talking to Cleveland about him getting an offensive coordinator job? That was almost like they were talking about that before he was actually fired.
Yeah, it came out pretty quick.
If Cleveland got Kirk Cousins or something like that, I could actually see the Browns' offense being pretty good if he's the offensive coordinator.
I can't remember who they've added in their front office, but I feel like I approved of who they brought in, and I thought this could actually start working. Who have they added?
Was it the Chiefs personnel guy?
I cannot remember now. There was something that happened with them, and I was like, this could actually start working for them, especially if they get go get Alex Smith, get a good offense going, bring in a little bit more talent, and who knows what they'll be next year.
John Dorsey.
Well, Scotty,
Dorsey.
Yeah. Before we move too far from what you were just talking about, Scotty, I totally agree. I have so much more respect for Robinson having the conviction. I mean, like you said, whether you agree with the reasoning or not, just the fact that he had the conviction to say 9-7 playoff win, he's looking at more details than because on the surface, I mean, really, when you boil down the NFL, it's about wins, right? But he's looking at the long term, winning consistently.
Well, it's contending for the Super Bowl.
Right.
Being a Super Bowl contender over time.
Yeah, over time. That's the key part. And he had enough conviction to look ahead and say, yes, we were, I guess you could put in quotes, contender this year. But long term, he did not feel like this was building a true contender. And that's, I mean, we'll see how it all pans out. But that's a pretty strong statement from him right there.
And he has the potential to look really stupid, and it's going to be on him.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, the risk is all on him. So,
I mean, you said it, I think, on Titans Report. I mean, the pressure is now on. It's on Robinson, and it's on Mariota. I mean, it's like Mariota's probably not going to get another coach. I mean, unless, he goes to another team.
He's not going to get another coach where the goal is to – we're going to make everything.
Yeah.
If he flops again, I mean.
Yeah. So I mean, this is obviously a huge moment for Robinson. And again, before we get too far away from this, I want to jump a little bit into the post you had, Jamal, because I think it's it is fascinating to look back and to really to try and unpack, was when Robinson took this job, I mean, it was pretty much widely known that Mularkey was sort of forced upon him. I think he was actually in on the interviews, but it was pretty much, this is who you're hiring. I mean, it was Amy's hire. John Robinson did not get to hire the coach. And we talked about sort of over the years that he's been here, he got that the title change last year and sort of an increase in responsibilities. We wondered, how much clout, what is his reputation like with Amy Adams Strunk behind the scenes now? So I would love to know, like, what he told her from the get-go. Like, did he say, I would not go with Mike Mularkey, but if you do, I will work with him? Or was it, I'll work with him 100%? I mean, I don't think it's like this Game of Thrones-esque, he's been plotting the whole time, I'm going to oust him. But I could totally see it. Like one of you said earlier, I mean, it could probably be something that was in the back of his mind the whole time. Maybe he told her from the beginning, look, I don't think long-term, I'm not sure this is the best fit. Maybe we'll try it for a few years, see how it goes, and then kind of tweak from there. But I would just love to know what his mindset was like the whole time, because when he said this was his dream job, I actually do believe him. I mean, I believe that this is where he wants to be. So maybe he took it and said, maybe he told her the truth, maybe he didn't, and maybe it's just been in the back of his mind. I don't know, but I think it's a fascinating thing to think about.
I bet you they had conflict early on in the season, and it just kept getting worse and worse.
You think just this season, right?
I mean, it would have been hard.
Or you think this even started?
Well, it could have been the back. It could have been in the back of his mind, but I mean, there's no way he could have done anything last year. I mean, the season was too good. Mm-hmm. But I bet, this year, I bet, it boiled it in. It almost seemed at the end, it was like, my God, how many times are we going to keep winning here at the end before I can get rid of this guy?
Well, we kind of laughed at the people who were saying Robinson's hoping they lose, but now I'm kind of like, I don't know. He might have. He was probably very uncomfortable with the way they were winning. I agree.
I guess if they'd have beat New England, it would have. I guess maybe it would have been harder to get rid of him, but who knows? They might have anyway.
I find it fascinating, the whole sequence of things, in that John Robinson doesn't strike me as somebody who would deal well with. Yeah, I don't know. I think he wants control, right?
Yes, absolute control.
And the situation with Mike Mularkey was not where the GM had control. We talked about that numerous times.
I think Mularkey.
Yeah, we even talked about him being like a yes man. That might be a negative, that he just came in and said, okay, sure.
I think Mularkey also, I mean, there's a perception about him, that he's a big goof or whatever, but I think he's probably an alpha male that was like, you're not going to tell me what to do. And
that's where I was going.
I guarantee you they clash. It's like, and that's why Mularkey's like, hey, you're not going to tell me how to run. I've been doing this for years, buddy. I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
I would rather get fired than have you tell me how to do it.
You even said on the podcast last week, Mike Mularkey has control over his staff. They're not going to tell him to fire somebody.
That's right. Hey, and at the same time, I respected Robinson for I don't blame Mularkey at all. If he thought that was the best way to do it, more power to him. Yeah,
but so I honestly think the two of them have been button heads, and it's not even necessarily like it's unacceptable. I think it's just communication wise, I could see them button heads and little things becoming a big problem in terms of how they work together.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
Well, of course, this all sort of came to a head at the end of the year after the Patriots game. I mean, the Patriots game, I think we should just run through that pretty quickly, because it seems like it was so much longer back than not even a week ago. But we saw how the game went down, and it looked good early. I mean, we had a couple stops early on defense. Titans actually took a 7-0 lead on Corey Davis's first touchdown of the season, and what was maybe the best catch anybody's had all year for the Titans, honestly. I mean, that was just a spectacular catch. And I mean, I was feeling pretty good at that point. And Then New England adjusted. Mariota tweaked his what was it this time? Achilles or something?
Quad.
Yeah, tweaked his quad. Conklin goes down, and it was really all downhill from there. I mean, the offense for the Patriots ripped us up and down the field. I will say, and we don't have to dwell on this, but I think all of us pretty much agreed. You know, there were some questionable calls that I'm not saying they would have won the game for the Titans, but they came at the moment when, I mean, it was just backbreaking the moments that they came. Absolutely backbreaking to where any kind of momentum we might have been able to get was just totally undercut. And then the Patriots, of course, just ran away with it. I mean, Mariota could barely move, it looked like, at times. Sacked 8 times. And it was just pretty much disaster after the first quarter. And they did score, I mean, at the end to make it look not too, I mean, 35-14 was the final, but Brady pretty much did whatever he wanted. They had great success throwing to the backs, as I think you highlighted last time, Jamal. So, I mean, it was a frustrating end to the year and really shows all kind of, they were overmatched in virtually every category. I still cannot believe no one told Adoree Jackson, stop coming out of the end zone. If you're one inside the end zone, do not come out, because they lost so many yards that way. But there's just all kinds of things.
It was talked about leading up to the game over and over
again.
Yeah,
well, I think they talked about it.
Yeah, they try to make you come out, and then they take a knee when you kick it in the end zone on them, and they gain so much field position doing that. You really saw just how, I mean, Bill Belichick is so awesome. You just
all the little things.
The difference in him and Mularkey, which is not even a knock on Mularkey, it's just about anybody else that's on the other end of the sideline. I mean, so well prepared on every single aspect of the game, and just so well coached.
I'm going to link a tweet in this post, or this topic when it gets posted on TitansReport.com. I read an article about, I can't remember if it was on SI.com, but I think I favorited it on Twitter so I can find it. But it was basically somebody who had read Belichick's father's book on scouting and all of the little nuance and detail in there. And how,
just to make sure we get that, it started cutting out a bit. I don't know if it came through for everybody or not. A book by now?
It's Belichick's father's book on scouting.
Gotcha.
And just how detailed it is, and like the nuance and the organization, getting down to how you organize your binder, what size rings you use to keep things together. And the reason for that is it helps you stay organized so that you can maximize your time when you're trying to scout a team at a game. And I was reading through that, and all I was thinking the whole time was, holy crap, if that's your dad and you were truly learning from him, no wonder Bill Belichick is Bill Belichick. Like, I just thought it was a fascinating read. I actually might get that book.
It's the same thing with the football life they did on Bill Belichick. I don't know if you remember, but, you know, Saban, Schwartz, all these guys worked under him. And they said when they got there, the whole league did the scouting and everything the same way. They threw it all away, and Belichick told them, here's how we're going to do it now. And they just totally went against what the league did, and it was a whole new way to do it, and way better, they said. Yeah.
I mean, Belichick is just amazing. Tom Brady's amazing. They outclassed us, they outmatched us, and that was the game.
Hey, that's the thing. I mean, he's great, but Tom Brady was so good in that game. He was hitting those running backs in perfect stride, and they were getting yards after the catch. I mean, they really do need each other for the greatness to come out.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, honestly, the biggest things to come out of this game, I thought Corey, in terms of like positives, Corey Davis looked the best we've seen him all year. I mean, you can say what you want about the garbage touchdown, but that was another just spectacular catch to get both feet down. And
he's been coming on. I mean, it was obvious this was coming. He's been coming on for weeks.
And Mariota, I mean, before the injury, he looked pretty good. I mean, he was looking really good early in the game. And then same once he couldn't scramble around as much, but he was making a lot of good throws in the game. And in terms of negatives, you got to go with Conklin. I mean, him going down with the ACL injury, likely that this is going to linger into the start of next season. Who knows how long they'll be without him. But, I mean, that's big. And I don't know that Conklin would solve all the offensive line problems in this game, but it was just staggering to see how the offensive line was just ripped in this game. We talked about last week, we should have had the advantage up front. And Tony Romo even said before the game, the Titans have the better lines on both sides. And boy, Patriots didn't agree with that.
I kind of liked what Romo said because it's kind of what I said on the podcast before the game.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing when he said that.
But once the Patriots got the big lead, I mean, that changes everything on the line. So, they could just pass rush or that. Yeah. So I think that – and I think Mariota was to blame on some of them sacks too.
So to kind of wrap up this season, I mean, guys, this has been one of the most bizarre seasons I ever remember following. We kind of joked a lot throughout the year about people would rather see the team play well and lose than play ugly and win. And we had so many ugly wins this year, yet they win 9 games. They get in the playoffs. They win a game in the playoffs. And I mean, just on its own, that Chiefs game will stand as, one of the greatest comebacks in this franchise's history. I mean, it was incredible. Yet
one of the greatest comebacks in NFL playoff history, actually.
Yeah.
Fifth one, I think.
Yet there's just this sense of disappointment that actually everybody talked about. Malarkey talked about it. Mariota talked about it. They did not play a complete game on either side of the ball all year long. And ultimately, that's probably why Malarkey was fired. I mean, the fact that they could not do that at all. And so it's just such an awkward feeling that we have here heading into the offseason now. So, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this season. It was a great run. It was fun. I mean, winning that game against the Chiefs was the greatest feeling we've had in a long, long time as fans. Yet there was always this lingering in the back of your mind of, man, for the long term, next year, when you look at what the division's got, next year, when you look at our schedule, next year, when you look at the guys that, I mean, we're going to be drafting a lot later. It's not much in free agency. There's a lot to worry about going forward.
The roster is, it changes every year, but there's a lot of things that need to be upgraded on the roster, and they don't have that many draft picks. And that's not to say they can't do it, but
yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot of young guys stepping up, making that progression like Bayard did this year. But yeah, I mean, Jamal, it's just, for me, it's hard to kind of put my overall feelings on this year into words. I mean, as fun as it was, ultimately, I would say that it was a disappointment overall.
Yeah. It was the most frustrating, somewhat successful season, like a winning season, and yet I spent most of the year frustrated. And like winning games, I spent most of the game frustrated. It was a weird experience, for sure.
Yeah, it was.
But at the same time, go ahead.
Well, they even beat a lot of winning teams and all that, and it still wasn't like you just never got going and never thought they could make a run. I mean, if everything would have clicked, it's very possible the season would have ended exactly when and where it did anyway. But
right,
the way they got there and everything is just so, just they sputtered and just low scoring games, and it just, yeah.
I mean, it was
frustrating.
We even talked about if you flip the script with last year's team, plug it in for this year's team. I mean, if it had been reversed, if this had been last year, Mike Malarkey probably still has a job. Yep. And if this last year had been this year, and we see that sudden surge in the offense, yeah, such a weird season to follow. And now, I mean, we're just headed for more uncertainty. So we've, as you said, Scotty, there's a lot of needs that they're going to need to address. Guys getting older on especially on defense. I mean, we're relatively young on offense, but defense, they're really getting up there in age now. And there's a lot of needs on that side of the ball. They desperately need to generate more pressure, more sacks, more just overall pressure without blitzing on the quarterback, I think.
Oh, I'm glad you.
So moving.
Let me say this
ahead.
real fast. I said defense all last offseason. Look at who's left. 3 of the top 4 scoring defenses. The Patriots were 5th.
Yeah.
And 3 of the teams can get pressure with only their 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those teams have, Keenum, Foles, Blake Bortles. Defense always gets you to the end. If you're one of the best defenses, you almost always get to the end.
Well, yeah, and there have been a couple of instances, like even in the Super Bowl, we've had it in the last 10, 15 years where it's like the top defense and the top offense both made it.
Yeah.
I think of like Oakland versus Tampa Bay. Who won? The defense.
Seahawks, Denver.
Right.
Seahawks.
Yeah.
Number 1 defense.
Broncos played the Patriots, and remember when Von Miller went off and they beat them?
So defense wins. And the other thing I was going to point out, people always say it's a quarterback-driven league. One of the things we pointed out last week was how every one of the games had a super experienced, like top echelon quarterback against a young guy or a not proven guy or a not good guy. And 3 of the good quarterbacks lost.
Yep.
It's a defense-driven
league.
Got
the defenses that won it. Yep.
By the way, I would have much rather lost like the Titans did than like the Saints did.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
But been there, done that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was going to say, John, before we move on, one of the other interesting things, because it seems like the experience this year, there's the good side and the bad side, and it's just like you're stuck in the middle. One of the interesting things is the way the season went and the way it ended, it did not feel like a building block. But now you get rid of the coaches and you see a lot of fans talk on TitansReport.com and just thinking about how generally I feel. And it's like, no, we've got a lot of stuff. We just need a coach and we could surprise next year. It's like, it's very different. There's a dichotomy there. And I don't even know that that's very rational. It actually makes me think no, I think we're not as good as we think we are.
It's not rational. It's just like the draft. Whenever a team's hiring a new coach, it's just like looking at draft picks. Honestly, the truth is, these teams always, every couple of years, these coaches last 2 or 3 years, everyone's pumped when they get hired. And honestly, mathematically, it's probably going to fail. That's the stone cold truth. It probably will fail because it's hard to win a Super Bowl. It's super hard. You got to get lucky. And, that's the bitter truth that winning the Super Bowl, all this, the coach will probably get fired in 2 or 3 years. That's mathematically anyway.
Yeah, speaking of that and of the defense, I've seen some things going around about how the defensive coaches have been having more success recently than hiring these, young and up and coming offensive guys. Hire a guy who's strong in defense, who knows defense with defense, and then let him hire someone as an offensive coordinator, say, you run what you want to run, you run your offense, seems like that's what's having more success. You look at Doug Marrone, you look at Zimmer. There's a lot of coaches. What was that?
Dan Quinn.
Yeah, exactly. Belichick's a defensive guy going back. So, and then you've got, of course, the Eagles. So he's Peterson. Yeah, he's an offensive guy.
But Schwartz is one of the best defensive coordinators.
Right. Yeah. So it seems like if you look at recent history, it seems like the defensive coordinators are actually faring a little bit better when they take over as head coach. So, let's wrap up with that as we sort of preview where the Titans go from here. And so far, they're only confirmed to be interested in 3 guys. They've got 3 interviews set up. Steve Wilks, defensive coordinator with the Panthers. Matt LaFleur, who I believe is the offensive coordinator with the Rams. And then the other one is Mike Vrabel, defensive coordinator for 1 year with the Texans. So 2 defensive guys there, 1 offensive guy there. I don't expect this will be the only 3. I think we're going to get, I would hope at least that J-Rob is really going to interview a wide range of guys, and that we get the process that we wanted last time, that thorough of letting a football guy go out and find a football coach rather than Tommy Smith saying, hey, let's get Whisenhunt, or Amy saying we're sticking with Mularkey.
One of the things I heard Mike Keith say is John Robinson knows everyone. So honestly, he probably already has his list, and he probably can narrow it down without even interviewing these guys. So wouldn't surprise me if they only interview those 3 guys and he picks one of those.
I think it was the same conversation Mike Keith said. You can always expect a surprise too. Don't be surprised if he's looking at college guys, which is
Kuharsky said that him, too.
Kuharsky, somebody said that. I listened to a bunch of those interviews from from Monday, and I could be getting it mixed up with Mike Keith, but I think it was Mike Keith. And then I was looking at college coaches. It's like, who is there really? I don't know that. It would be a surprise if there was somebody you got from college.
I think the college guys generally fail more often than the retreads from the NFL.
Hey, maybe Harbaugh's tired of being at Michigan. There's one. I think David Shaw is the other name that always gets thrown around because he has NFL background. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I don't know. I know the Colts interviewed that one guy that was just like so off the wall. Everybody was like, wait, what? Who? I can't remember who he was with. But the one name we have not mentioned that for at least a couple of hours immediately after Mularkey's firing, it seemed like Josh McDaniels, front runner. And we talked about, and I think a lot of people, they were connecting the dots, feeling like, oh, well, that's J-Rob's guy. You know, he's going to go get him now. The Titans are the front runner. And then sort of a couple hours later, it came out that no, he's pretty much locked in already with Indy. So it's going to be fascinating to see how he does with the Colts. It's just because the Titans, I mean, they could have had Ballard, they could have had McDaniels, and now they're both going to be in Indy. Who knows what happens with Andrew Luck? But even if Luck's gone, I mean, they're going to be able to draft a guy with the pick they have. But assuming Luck comes back, that's going to be an interesting situation to watch there with McDaniels and Ballard leading the way, and Robinson and whoever the Titans go out and find. So, yeah, I mean, so many people like get tied to different guys, and I think you said this, Scotty. I was talking about it as well. It's impossible for fans to know. I mean, we can watch interviews and kind of glean things from articles, but you really don't know these guys.
Well, they don't even know.
You're gonna.
The teams don't even know.
I mean, but even Robinson, I mean, he's got so much more information than we know just about their personalities, about all any skeletons in their closet, about the warts they may have, about all the details of those guys. It's impossible for us to know. So I try not to get married as a fan. I try not to say, this is my guy, and if we don't get him, I'm going to be so disappointed. I'm going into this pretty open of if he does a thorough search, I'm going to be happy with the guy he picks.
I literally do not care who they hire. I have no preference at all.
This is going to be the worst podcast analysis ever because I saw all the names and I tried to determine, like, do I hate any of these guys? Do I love any of these guys? At this point, no. Like, maybe as we learn more and we get further down the process and more stories come out about this guy and you read it and you say, oh, I like that. But in general, what you said is how I'm feeling right now, John, which is do a thorough search. If I get the sense that they really looked into a number of guys, whoever John Robinson feels comfortable with, I'm going to end up being able to talk myself into it and feel just as comfortable as any of the other guys.
Look at the last 2 guys, Whisenhunt and Mularkey. Look how many people loved Whisenhunt. 2 terrible seasons. Everyone hated Mularkey. 2 winning seasons, a playoff. So, I mean, the fans' acceptance of the hire doesn't mean anything.
Yep, that's true. I mean, the one thing I'll say that I want to see, if the coach comes in and says, we're going to build our team around the run, I might just lose it. I want him to come in and say, this offense is going to be built around the quarterback. That's all I want.
Well, I was honestly
They usually do say stuff about the run like that. I mean,
Well, you
Wissenberg
got to
did
have the
that.
run, yeah. But I mean, yeah, I think most people get what I'm saying. If the focus is going to be the run game, ugh, I can't
I
do it.
want whoever gets hired, I want them to come in and start talking about exotic pass mouth. No, I honestly was thinking today, and I was thinking, how hard do I want to press Scotty on the fact that Malarkey
Right.
got fired and he defended him to the end, and I was like, well, what are the
But
chances it could come back and bite me? Well, if the team
oh,
sucks, and I was like, the worst case scenario is the new guy comes in and installs an offense that looks exactly the same. Lost.
what if
So they're
Mariota?
not allowed to do that.
What if Mariota looks the same next year?
Malarkey broke him.
I believe that's what'll be said for sure.
Humpty Dumpty, man. What do you want?
I mean, if
What
that's
is-
what happens, it doesn't even really matter who broke him at that point, because at that point you're
At that point, you're buying some other quarterback's jersey and moving on.
I don't take anything back I said about Malarkey. He had 2 good years. He had Mariota playing at a Pro Bowl level at some point. This year, there was debatable circumstances about why the offense wasn't good. They couldn't run the ball because Murray was washed up. They had injuries. I mean, there's excuses for why the offense was bad just because of Malarkey.
honestly one of the things that came out in recent days that just made me even more convinced on Malarkey is when he said something to the effect of like they didn't really think about or design anything for if Mariota wasn't as mobile. Like, are you kidding me? Like, if he can't move around, your offense is done. Whatever, you did it against the Colts. I mean, you guys had it in there.
The Colts have the worst secondary in the league. The Patriots are not going to let you do that. I totally agree with what he said there. Because, listen, I heard Andy Benoit after that game. He said, all these people, why didn't they go to shotgun? I'll tell you why. Because the Patriots have the best defense in the league against 11 personnel.
Couldn't have been any worse.
Their strength of their defense was when they bring out their 7 defensive back package. So the Titans are trying to keep them in their base. They're weaker against their base. Problem is the Titans can't run the ball on their base offense. So the thing you can do, which happened in the first 95-yard touchdown drive, Mariota can run. He converted some third downs on that first drive. Once he couldn't run, there is no answer. What's the answer?
Well, that's where you get into Bill Belichick would have found an answer. How many other coaches? I don't know, but who's not going to find an answer?
No,
Mike Malarkey and Robisky.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't have just made the offense good.
So you're saying if you plug in just because he wasn't mobile, that the offense should be done. I don't buy that at all.
Against the New England Patriots, you better believe it.
We were talking early in the year about how bad their defense was. They're not that great of a defense.
They've been pretty good more recently.
I mean,
Okay, you think Mariota's going to pick them apart? The dude had 13 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. Are you kidding me?
Because of many of the factors we've talked about. So you just go to something that isn't going to work equally, the running game, which has sucked all year. No. That's terrible. Terrible coaching, terrible game planning.
I guess my point is there are coaches. Well, he certainly struggled all year.
You can
disagree with that.
You can say why, but he sucked. A lot of people do not want to admit that, and that's one of the problems. Mariota was terrible this year. He was terrible.
That's well and good. I agree with that. The question is why, and you can debate that all day. But what I don't think is debatable is that Mike Malarkey had an offense he wanted to run, and that's the damn offense he's going to run no matter what. Period.
Well, I agree he's going to run his offense.
It wasn't malleable. And I think that, of course, Mike Malarkey isn't going to be able to figure something out if the quarterback isn't mobile. Mike Malarkey can't figure those things out. He doesn't want to. He wants to run his offense.
Well, the quarterback's not mobile. He's also not a good passer right now. Maybe that gets fixed. He's not a good passer. He missed wide open receivers. He threw the ball direct. to think that he's going to drop back and just start picking apart the Patriots is wishful thinking. He didn't even keep from getting sacked half the time. Forget passing. He couldn't even keep from getting sacked once he was hurt.
If he's that bad, then you take him out.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, or maybe if the offensive line can't block, you go to a quick passing attack.
Your answer is to put Castle in? Are you serious, John?
If he's that bad, you're saying he can't move away from getting sacked? Then yes.
Could he move away from getting sacked? You saw the game. Could he? No, he couldn't. And oh my God,
then
you also
start with a quick passing
starting
attack.
Right tackle. Scotty, you've watched the NFL long enough. You know there's things they can do to try and help the situation, other than saying, "Well, we're just going to run the ball for the rest of the game."
Okay, if you think the answer is putting in Matt Castle, okay, I mean, whatever. I guess they could have done that. You're right, they could have done that.
That's not what I'm saying.
You said take him out. That's what you said.
No,
I said if he's that bad off that he can't.
He was that bad off. He got. Did the Titans
if he literally can't pass and literally can't run and literally can't escape sacks, then you have to do something else, and so turn to a backup quarterback. But I don't think the answer is that he couldn't do any of that.
That wouldn't have worked.
I think the answer is they weren't going to try any of that, and I think that is fundamentally a flaw with Mike Mularkey, and I'm glad he's gone.
Well, that's fine. I mean, that's fine, but this is a different debate. There was no answer to beat the Patriots once he got hurt.
You don't know that. You know that there was no answer with Mike Mularkey.
Well,
other coaches adjust in game, and they could have done something. Who knows what it would have been? That's why they get paid to be the head coach and design offenses.
They've lost 3 games this year. They've won the Super Bowl, 2 out of the...
You predicted a Titans win, man. Don't tell me that they're this indefeatable team.
And it was predicated a lot on Mariota running, too.
The Titans'
Which
success?
he had done a lot of the week before.
If you want to say that he didn't develop Mariota, that's fine, okay? That's possibly true. I said if Robinson thought that was a reason enough to fire him. If you want to say the offense underperformed. But don't tell me there was some answer to beat the Patriots once he got hurt, because there wasn't. And if you have to throw up stuff like putting in Matt Castle, you're proving my point.
No, dude, let me, before we move on from that,
anything.
You were essentially saying he can't pass, he can't run, he can't get away from sacks. If he can't do any of those things, you think you should leave him in there? I mean, what?
Did you know he got sacked? Did you know he got sacked on 3 plays in a row?
Do you know? You're saying that he couldn't pass. You said he couldn't pass. You said he couldn't run. You said he couldn't evade sacks.
He's not gonna pick apart the Patriots defense by passing.
Okay,
yes, I'm saying that. Yes, he's not going to win the game by passing all over the Patriots. Yes, I'm saying that.
Okay, that's fine. That's different than saying he can't pass at all, because if he can't do any of those things,
yeah, he could throw a pass. He could literally throw a forward pass. Yes, he could do that.
So then, oh man.
But if you think that's going to beat the Patriots, you're dreaming.
I think that you have to try it, right? You have to try something if what you're doing is not working.
Well, you don't think they tried to pass? They did try to pass.
I think they stuck with their game plan, and that was it. I mean, you had an offensive line that once Conklin was out, it was porous. And did they go to some sort of spread them out, quick pass, try and do something? You see offenses do that to us all the time. They can't block. Well, we're going to get the ball out in 2 seconds, period.
And they lose. You see them lose all the time.
No, I don't remember who it was that beat us, but we were talking about before the game, they're just going to go to a quick passing attack, and that's what they did. That happened to us this year. And it happens across I mean, why could the Titans not get a hand on Tom Brady? The ball was out immediately. That's why.
That's because Tom Brady's 20 times better than Marcus Mariota.
It's the way the offense is designed. He executes it well. But that's the theory of the offense. That's the offensive approach. And the reason for that is to make it so that you can't get to him.
And one of the problems Mariota's had all year is he won't throw. I want to drop the F-bomb right now. He won't throw the ball. He won't throw the ball. Throw the ball. Romo said it in the game. When you see the guy open, throw the ball. He wouldn't.
I don't disagree with that.
And
but
we
did not go to
where the guys were open and he wouldn't throw the ball.
Yes, there are plays he missed, but the offense we ran did not adjust for the fact that we couldn't block and the quarterback was immobile. If Mike Mularkey says he's immobile and the offensive line can't block because we lost our right tackle and nothing can work if the right tackle is in the backup role, then you have to go to something else. We didn't adjust. It wasn't there.
And it's not like this was some big surprise. That's my point. It wasn't just a one-game thing. I mean, Mike Mularkey's known all year that they were incapable of running the ball. And you get this far into the season with very little. I mean, they did try to do a little bit more towards the end of the year, but then this game against New England, it was like once he was hurt, that was it.
Yes, exactly. That was it. That's right. I think they were doing what, I mean, it wasn't going to work, but I think they did what they thought the best thing to do was, which I'm not even sure y'all, I mean, the fact that how many rushes, passes did they have in the second half? I mean, I'm not even willing to concede you're even right about what they did in the second half.
Oh, wait, what are we saying here? What they did in the second half?
Jamal said they continued to run and stick to the same game plan.
No, I said they didn't adjust to a quick passing attack to compensate for the fact that they couldn't block.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's the adjustment you make when you can't block and your quarterback can't escape the pressure that's inevitably going to come on every drop back.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you try to do. But if you think New England's going to let you do that, I doubt it.
You don't have to be successful with it, but they don't get to say what you're going to try to do. We didn't try it. This wasn't a matter of New England stopping us from doing it. We didn't try it.
Mariota threw 37 times.
Yes, he did. Because we were down all game.
Brady completed 35. Oh, how's that for a stat?
How about they scored like on 7 of 8 drives and like 5 of them were touchdown drives? I mean, no one talks
dominating.
about that. How about that defense?
Our defense?
Yeah. How funny is it?
Not good.
By the way, I'll say something. Mularkey, something that I didn't know that was kind of, I thought, alarming. Every place he's gotten hired, he just kept the defensive coordinator there that was already there.
Really?
I think that's pretty damning.
Interesting.
I actually thought it would be interesting to see going into the offseason if he would try to say, I want to move to a new defensive coordinator, but I want to keep Rubisky at offensive coordinator and see if that was going to be something that leaked out and
I think that was
negotiations
possible
with them.
I think that was possible.
I can't wait to get Scotty's reaction if the new coach says Dick LeBeau is a great coach and I want to keep him on this staff.
I don't think it's a given. He's gone.
What's going to be your reaction, John? Are you going to be happy with that?
Probably not. No.
I mean, I heard several breakdowns. Everyone knows LeBeau's defense now. I mean, these guys are playing pitch and catch against it. It's hilarious.
I don't want to keep relitigating Mike Mularkey because it's done and over with, and to a certain extent, I think listeners probably don't care anymore. I want to see, what do you think about this team at this point? We talked about how the defense is old. I was actually looking at it. It's like we kind of have some talent on the defensive line, but I honestly think, well, it depends on what kind of defense we're running next year. So that's going to be, who knows if we're in a 3-4 or 4-3, but defensive end, I think, is a need.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of those guys are even.
You mean
like middle age?
Edge rusher? You mean?
Yeah.
I think Morgan's like 27, isn't he? He's younger than you think.
I thought he was like 29, so maybe he is younger.
I believe Casey's 29. I was looking this up recently. Yeah, Morgan's 29 as well.
He just turned 29.
Just turned 29.
Did you say Casey was 29?
Let me look it up here. Because I remember being
He's
shocked.
28.
Oh, he's 28. Jeez. Yeah.
We have an old defense.
Just turned
in terms
28.
of like the big names. If you look at Arakpo, Morgan, Casey, they're old on the defensive line. They still have years left, but you got to reload there.
I was going to say a while ago, Wesley Woodyard he had an unbelievable season. He's like 32, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for him to keep that up.
Oh, he's not going to.
He is 31. He'll be 32 in July.
Yeah, before the season starts. Avery Williamson, however good he is, his
contract's up.
Yeah, and I don't know if Jayon Brown can start and play every down because he's so small. They've got serious questions with the roster.
Well, they have not, as you talked about, you wanted to go defense last year with a lot more emphasis than we did. The defense hasn't been invested in the same way. And I feel like you can tell.
Well, the secondary, I think it's funny because after Brady put up the numbers he did, the secondary sucks. No, it doesn't. That's not the part of the defense that sucks. The secondary is actually good. I think the front seven is where they're lacking.
Yeah.
And I think
if you
can't play all that man coverage either. I think that's a problem. But
I mean, I think up front it's Casey and everybody else. I mean, everybody else for me is, I wouldn't say expendable, but when you look at Arakpo and Morgan, where they're, Morgan's a little bit younger than you think, but Morgan's a solid player, but he's not that game-changing type of guy. They desperately need someone like that up front or on the edge, And I still think they need one more corner. I think one more corner would be really nice to have.
I think they're loaded at corner. That's like the best position on the team. Who's another corner going to play over?
I think the only two for me are Ryan and Adoree. And Adoree, Ryan's best in the slot, so I want another outside guy. I don't trust Ty Smith yet.
I think if him and Sims are your third and fourth cornerback, you're pretty good, I think.
So, yeah, I mean, they need – I don't think they're going to replace Cyprien regardless of how we feel about him. But
no, he was being used wrong. Robinson's man was being used wrong. They just got to use him right.
To maximize him.
So, I mean, arguably at every level, they need someone on defense. Offense is going to be interesting to see what they do at right tackle with Conklin likely out at the beginning. Do they try to ride it out with Kelly, or do they look to bring in a veteran guy to hold them over, or draft a young guy there who can be kind of a
and they need a guard, and they need a guard too. Klein's contracts, and he's I don't know how good he is. And honestly, Ben Jones was not.
That's
good.
what I was going to say.
That
center is no. Yeah, there are a lot of positions. I actually think injured. On the Titans, they could go either way in terms of, is this guy actually good or is he not good? There are a lot on the offensive line. All three interior positions, I'm not 100% sold on. And then you've got a right tackle issue. That offensive line could be very different next year.
There was three guys that before they made the coaching change that I just thought could not come back next year. And we haven't even talked about one of them. They got to get a backup quarterback. They have to.
Yep.
That's a given. They should have gotten one last year.
And
we would have won Miami with 90% of the backup quarterbacks in the NFL.
Almost did it with him.
Maybe even with Whedon, if he'd been quarterbacking.
I would have went crazy, which, I mean, he's not gone yet, but I'm sure he will be. Murray can't come back. And my other one was Dick LeBeau. I didn't think Dick LeBeau would come back. All three of those guys are still on the team.
The running back. Yeah.
I said it before, but when you see the reports about Dick LeBeau, they're saying he's still coming to work every day. The reports out, he's waiting around to see, does the next coach want him? Like, it's no given that he's gone.
Was not on a year-to-year contract.
Yeah, he's under contract.
Wherever that got started, I mean, it was definitely reported that he was on a year-to-year contract. And now we learn that, he actually was under contract.
Well, he is kind of on a year-to-year contract with death.
Yeah. He's on a year.
Oh, man. I mean, and you look at free agency this year, I mean, I know normally you feel like there's always a couple guys who can really help you. I mean, you look at Calais Campbell, AJ Bouye, the Jags, huge turnaround there. But I look at the list this year, man, and there is not much. Almost all those quarterbacks are going to get signed. if you just Google like 2018 free agents, it's like half quarterbacks at the top. That's all going to change because they're all going to get signed. There's really not a lot out there that I think could, help this team. Maybe a guard. There's the guard from Carolina, perhaps. But there's not a lot of guys that look at that list and be like, man, if we got them, that would really solidify this position. There's just not that many guys. And then,
do you think that's more about the fact that our roster is not terrible, or do you think that's more about the fact the free agents aren't that good?
I think it's the free agents, because last year we were actually looking at guys like Logan Ryan and Boye that went to Jacksonville, and Logan Ryan was a home run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The list to me, it's just like to me, it pales in comparison to, you look at it now before they've even had the chance to, because a lot of those guys are going to get re-signed, the ones who are worthwhile and people who the teams think are really good, even without them getting re-signed though. I just look at the list now and there's nothing there that really excites me the way that guys like Boye and others did last year.
Well, they have to sign some of their own guys too. Like, are they going to sign Jones, the defensive end that got hurt? Are they?
Right.
They're going to have to sign Lewan either this year or next year, and he's going to get a monster contract.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then when you consider where they're drafting, honestly, I don't see a lot of newcomers contributing next year, except for maybe. I think they can get a really good running back. This draft, for the early reading that I've done, is loaded at running back.
That's what I saw.
I think they can get a good running back. But other than that, you just have to hope that the new coach is going to be able to fix Mariota and that these guys who are young right now are going to progress, that the Corey Davises, the Taywan Taylors, Adoree Jackson, that all those guys take that
Jonnu Smith
next step next year.
Jonnu Smith. I think they're actually pretty good at the skill position players, and I think whether Malarkey came back or next year, I think whoever the coach is going to benefit from Davis and hopefully Taylor. So they could be good in that regard.
I'm going to throw this out.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jamal.
I'm just going to throw this out there, and I don't expect him to move on from this guy, but I do not feel sold on Suckup at this point. He can't hit a kick
I saw
over
you
50.
tweeting that. Yeah,
I think you're
can't
crazy.
hit a kick over 50 at all. And I'm just, I don't know.
He's so consistent.
If it's in the 40s, he's great.
Well, most of them are though, and he's made some over 50. Didn't he?
The Kansas City one last year was.
And didn't he make
cold?
Did he make a 50-something yarder against the Chiefs in the playoffs this year? 52 or something.
Yeah, he definitely had a long one. No, I'm kind of with Scotty on that one. I was surprised when he tweeted that.
I'm in the wilderness on this one all by myself, but
I just think to get someone that you could trust more than him is just, I just don't even know where you'd look.
Well, if you're right on that one, you can definitely come back and gloat, Jamal.
Well, I'm used to it at this
point. That you called it this far.
Hey, Scotty, I wanted to.
He missed a 56-yarder.
No, I had the same reaction you did, Scotty, when I saw him tweet that. I was like, really? Suckup? We were just talking about him breaking the NFL record earlier this year.
Go ahead, Jamal. Let's hear it.
But I was going to say before we...
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'll throw it in at the end.
Before we hop off, the one thing that we probably should have talked about this with the coaching decision, it may not even be a big deal, but how bizarre is it that we've not seen a single player say anything? Not a single. I was shocked. Not a tweet. Nothing.
I think it's possible they were told not to say anything.
That's what I'm thinking. Because as soon as we found out, I posted. I said, "Get ready for the player backlash because it's coming," especially from the defense. Given how much, I don't know if you guys watched those locker room videos. They gave him a game ball when they got to their first playoffs, and then when they beat the Chiefs, they gave him a special game ball.
Oh, yeah. Delaney Walker was embracing with him on the sideline after they beat the Chiefs.
It seemed like Malarkey was crying at that moment, too. I think Delaney liked him.
Did you see?
I don't think any of the wide receivers did.
Well, they got blamed for everything Mariota did. Did you see Robinson in the presser when that was kind of brought up, and he was like defensive, like, "Hey, these players like me." I have a great relationship with all these guys.
Oh yeah, he did. He did
It was
say,
almost
I have
like,
a great
hey,
relationship with the players.
don't you think they like me more than Malarkey? Or
He
vice
said
versa.
he had that line about I have an open door policy if anybody wants to voice, concern or something. But yeah, I'm just shocked like that we've not seen nothing like positive or negative, not even like thanks coach or just zero.
But I mean, I did agree with Robinson though. This is life in the NFL. These guys have been on their teams. They've seen coaches fired like this. I mean, it happens all the time.
Oh yeah. Especially like Arakpo, because he was really sort of taking offense to the rumors when they were talking about Malarkey potentially being fired. I'm shocked we haven't heard something from him.
Some of that is just sort of the us versus the world mentality that you try to have in a locker room.
Yeah.
But some of it was likely heartfelt.
Oh, I think so. And you can see Arepko's point of view. Like, we're in the playoffs. We just won a game. Of course, we're not firing the coach.
All right, Jamal, what was that final thought you wanted to get out there?
I was just going to welcome Scotty back. He's had a couple of years where he's had to defend the indefensible. He's had to twist things, bend things. And it's partly an insult.
Get it out.
Partly in all seriousness, I'm happy that we don't have to debate this and I don't have to read you defend Malarkey anymore. I'm excited to see your analysis about games without having to spin it.
Okay, Jamal, I'm glad you didn't switch teams like you almost did 2 years. Because,
no, you're not.
Because this was going to be such an epic disaster. 2 winning seasons and playoff. And, you bashed Amy Adams Strunk. She's an idiot. And, all of a sudden she lets the football man do the decisions. I'm glad it's over. And I won't have to bring this up.
Amy Adams Strunk is the reason that Marcus Mariota is onto his 3rd coach now. She made a mistake. Unfortunately, she admitted it and moved on from Malarkey. But the way she went about hiring Malarkey was a problem, and it didn't work out. And now Marcus Mariota needs to recover.
Now he's on his 3rd coach. You said it was so bad you'd have to switch teams. And Green Bay, who missed the playoffs.
For the first time in like a decade.
Well, that's because Rodgers didn't carry him there. How about McCarthy? Why don't they fire him?
Because he makes the playoffs every year.
No, he doesn't. Not if Rodgers ain't there, he don't.
Yeah, once he didn't. It's remarkable that they finally missed. I think the last time they missed the playoffs, the Titans won a playoff game.
Malarkey got fired after 2 winning seasons, so
Malarkey got fired.
If you think I'm, feeling bad about that, you're crazy. They won a playoff game this year,
and he got fired anyway.
Not because it was an epic disaster, and he went 2-14 with the Jaguars, and blah blah
they
blah. They
fired him because they loved it so much.
Well, I don't know exactly why Robinson fired him, but
because of the offense.
They fired him.
Anyway.
You know what kind of quarterback gets more coaches fired than any kind?
A bad one.
No. One with potential.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks with potential get on. Oh, that's true. The quarterbacks with a lot of potential get more coaches fired than anybody. If they're bad,
well, it certainly highlights when a coach can't take care of that potential. There's always an excuse when it's a bad quarterback. When it's a good quarterback and he doesn't do anything.
I hope the next guy, I hope Mariota throws 30-something touchdowns and y'all are laughing going, we told you it was Malarkey.
He could, you know what? He could throw 15, 14, and he'd throw more than he did this year.
Well, let's see if the new guy has him do a better season than year one of Malarkey. You think that'll happen?
It would be very impressive if it did.
That's right. Hey, both seasons were not an offensive disaster. One of the seasons, I would like to have seen Malarkey come back and get the third chance with a better running game, but whatever. He's one of the few coaches that got fired after winning a playoff game, and that's got to be a black mark.
So here's something to close us out. We were talking about Mariota there. We know Malarkey's fate now. if Mariota's contract was up right now, do they let him go? Does he get the Andy Dalton type deal? Does he get the big Derek Carr type deal we were talking about? It seemed like he was going to get last year. Where is he at right now? I know they don't have to make the decision yet, and they've still got the fifth-year option coming.
They actually do. They do in March or whatever. They have to give him the fifth-year option in March.
Yeah. I mean, that's a given, though, right?
Of course, he's getting the Andy Dalton Kaepernick contract. They're not giving him no Andrew Luck or Derek Carr contract right now. Would you?
But they've seen enough to they're not moving on from him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you're not getting a better quarterback. They're not going to draft high enough, and you know, not that I'm not even saying they need to get one. What you have to do and what they had to do, either whether they switch coaches or not, the rest of the team needs to be better. The defense needs to be better. The running game needs to be better. You know, like Blake Bortles. I mean, how easy was it for him to be able to throw for 100 and something yards in most of these games and them to still win? I mean, that's what they've got to do. Build the rest of the team up so that he doesn't have to, you know, be Tom Brady. But if he turns into Tom Brady, all the better.
And one thing I think
if his contract was up right now, they'd bring him back, but they'd bring in competition, and maybe not competition that they would truly give a shot at the starting job, but it would be like a Ryan Fitzpatrick type backup.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's so easy to get out of those contracts now. You know, the Dalton type contracts that they would just probably give him one of those.
My point being, like, even with what the down year we've seen, I still have high confidence in the guy. I think, Scotty, you're totally right about the fact that an underrated thing that not enough people are talking about is that in his first 2 years, we always talked about like this weakness. He would improve it in the offseason. I think it's underrated that he was hurt and didn't get to work on his footwork as much. He talked about that being like a focal point of what he was going to work on. And then with the injury, he didn't get to work on nearly as much of that. I think that's going to be big for him. But just on what we've seen, I still have really high confidence in the guy. I think he's already better than the Daltons, the Flaccos of the world. And I still think he has that star potential. I am definitely more concerned given what we saw this year at times, the ups and downs, but still I've seen enough of the highs from him when he's on that it's still just a matter of being able to get there consistently and stay healthy. I mean, we haven't talked about that at all. We've got off season, but this, I mean, the injuries, it's really a huge deal now. We've seen the Whisenhunt approach. We've seen the Malarkey approach, and he's been hurt under both of them. So can't be ignored. Sorry, Jamal. Did you have a few other thoughts there that you were trying to say?
No, I don't think so. I think I was mostly done just trying to answer the question about if he ended now. Yeah, I think if he ended now, he's proven some things, but he had such a down year, you wouldn't sell out for him in a contract.
Right.
How about answer me this? You posted that article, Jamal. Okay, a lot of people say, you know, he's in the wrong offense and stuff. Tell me you don't agree that when people talk about what he should be in, it's the stupidest stuff that they say. You know what I mean?
A lot of things fans say are stupid.
No, not fans. No, not fans.
Oh, analysts?
Yes.
Like random, yeah. Well, random reporters just generally know nothing.
Hey, the dude
it's always fascinating to read articles about the Titans. Like there was one before the game I posted on titansreport.com and I said, there's some bad stuff in here, but there's also some good stuff. The bad stuff was just obnoxious in how it was so obviously wrong. It was like they were describing our season, and it was not how it went at all.
And also, what they want Mario to be doing is almost more insulting than what Malarkey was having him do. You know, you want him to do what Deshaun Watson did for the Texans. That's not even what the Texans wanted Deshaun Watson to do. They did that because he couldn't pass from the pocket. That's why he lost the job in preseason. That's not what you want Mariota doing, right? I mean, y'all agree?
And to a certain extent, that's the type of stuff they were
Mhm.
emphasizing, though, with Malarkey.
What do you
Like
mean?
some of that, like that article, I think that was said in the article I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the way they presented it was, they need to do more RPOs and stuff. It's like they kind of you don't
Yeah.
think they do that? They kind of have that in their offense.
Yeah, and Bucky Brooks is always saying they need to do what he did in Oregon. Like that's something you can just do in the NFL. I mean, no, that's not what he needs to do is like play like Tom Brady. I mean, make quick decisions, get the ball out, throw the ball accurately.
Yeah, I am no X and O guy, but my opinion has always been spread him out. It gives him more lanes for him to run and go with quick passes. And I'd love to see that more.
All right, guys. This might have been our longest episode of the year, but we had a lot to cover. And we're going to take a little break. I mean, who knows when? Definitely once a coaching announcement is made, I'm sure we'll be back with a podcast. But until then, I don't know that we will be doing any episodes in between then. Who knows how long it's going to be? I would expect they'll want to talk to some of these guys from the losing teams of the conference championships this week, but who knows? And maybe they'll like one of these first three guys, and we'll have an announcement pretty soon. But I think they're going to knock out these 3 interviews before the end of the week, and we'll see where it goes from there. So thank you all for your support throughout the season. Let us know what you thought. You can head over to titansreport.com and post in we always have a thread there for the podcast. It'll be right at the top of the page once you get to the forums on titansreport.com. You can also find us on Twitter at titansreport. We have a Facebook group, facebook.com/titansreport. And I think that's it. iTunes, Google Play, all the podcast services, you can find us there. Rate and review us on iTunes. It's been another fun season of the podcast, guys. I mean, all the ups and downs. And I thank you both, Scotty and Jamal, for your commitment to making this happen, because trust us, listeners, there are weeks when none of us feel like hopping on for an hour and recording. But I think we got an episode out every week. There might have been one week we missed, but I think there was a week when the holidays we might have missed. But seriously, thanks to both of you guys. I know you have lives, jobs, families, so it means a lot for y'all to be able to make time out of your week for this. And all the listeners as well, thank you for your support. And we will talk to you all again. Who knows how soon? You'll find out.